things have stabilized here, and so I'd like to get going. There might be some additional participants coming in, but they'll be able to get in here in good time. My name is Kevin Kephart. I'm the Deputy Director for the USDA NIFA Institute of Bioenergy, Climate, and Environment. It's a pleasure to join you today for another installment or another occasion of our webinar series on funding opportunities for climate change research, education, and extension. Today, we're going to be emphasizing AFRI programs. Last time we were talking about non-AFRI opportunities that might be out there for you, but today we're switching over to AFRI, and not all of AFRI. We're going to be talking about a certain set of the AFRI program. AFRI has defined by the Farm Bill has 6 priority areas. Today we'll be talking about 4 of those, and then we'll save the remaining opportunities for a future webinar. Today we'll be emphasizing plant production systems as well as plant protection systems, where a lot of our pathology, entomology, and other related areas are. And then as well, we'll be including animal production systems and then food and nutrition. So those 4 areas, and I'm sure everybody can envision how all of those are impacted one way or another by climate change and climate change impacted areas. So with that, I think we can move on to get the webinar underway. It's my pleasure to introduce a great division director and a colleague of mine at NIFA, and that's Rebella Goswami. So Rebella, I'll just hand it over to you.
Thank you, Kevin, for kicking off the webinar, and thanks all of you for joining today. We will go through a series of recordings about the different programs in these areas. The first recording will actually give you an idea of all the programs we will be covering today. We are going to be able to address about 13 of them given the time. In the next few weeks, we hope to be able to host another similar webinar session with the rest of the programs. With that, I would hand it over to Erin O'Reilly, who is our program specialist working with the climate priority team, and she will be running the rest of the webinars for you. Go ahead, Erin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Rebella Goswami, the Division Director for Plant Protection, serving as one of the co-leads for the Climate Priority Team at USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on NIFA's funding opportunities for climate change research, extension, and education put on by our Climate Priority Team. This slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations and states that language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request, and that anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed on the slide. So talking about meeting logistics. We'd like to remind you that we are recording this webinar. You can call the number on the screen if you need some Zoom support during the webinar. We will be taking question and answers during the live Q&A session at the end. And to enter your questions, please put them in the Q&A box. The webinar will be posted on the website listed here, and those registered for it will also receive an alert. Climate change projects are funded through many programs across NIFA's 70-plus program portfolio. There are 3 climate-specific programs, and NIFA also funds climate change-related work through our capacity programs. But the focus of today's seminar is to highlight how climate-related work is funded across some of the not-so-apparent program area priorities within the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, or AFRI, particularly those included in the plant health, animal health, and food safety, nutrition, and health priorities within AFRI's foundational and applied science request for applications. This is the second webinar on the topic, and for background, as well as information on several non-AFRI and some other AFRI programs, I would request that you review our earlier webinar, for which we have a link as well as a QR code here. This slide lists the different programs within the AFRI Foundational and Applied Science RFA that we will be hearing about from our national program leaders today. The presentations will provide brief introductions about the program, followed by an example project that addresses climate change funded through the program. With that, I will hand it over to our national program leaders.
Hello, I am Matt Gawaju, National Science Liaison for Plant Systems and Organic Farming with the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Today, I would like to highlight one of our AFRI programs, Foundational Knowledge of Agricultural Production Systems, program code A1102. This is one of our few AFRI programs that focus on practical agricultural production systems. The goal of this specific program is to support projects that advance our knowledge of the wide range of agricultural production systems, from urban to rural, from conventional to organic, and from open field to protected and built environments. This program has a wide range of priorities, but for our discussion today, which focuses on climate change, I will limit that to those three priorities that are relevant. The first priority is to investigate how agricultural production systems can enhance resilience to various biotic and abiotic stresses, including those exacerbated by climate change. Priority 2 is to determine how production systems can alter the structure of microbial communities and impact on resilience to weather extremes associated with climate change. And the third priority is to conduct synthesis and meta-analysis of existing data, or develop new or extend existing models to better understand cropping systems performance. These third priorities may look like it is not relevant to climate change, but in fact, we do receive a lot of projects focusing on this priority. Let's take a close look at one of those projects that were funded within the scope of this third priority. The title of the project is Optimal Individual Tree Management for Climate Smart Forestry Using Process-Based Modeling. It's a project that was funded in 2023 to Oregon State University. A little bit of background here. Current tree growth models in the Pacific Northwest assume two things. They assume that the climate is constant, and they were also developed for non-spatial predictions. You can immediately see a lot of weaknesses in those current models. The goal of this project is to address those weaknesses by incorporating process-based models and high-resolution remote sensing data into those existing models. The project has three specific objectives. The first is to identify climate-smart silvicultural systems which are operationally feasible, but at the same time, socially acceptable. The second objective is to assess and develop efficient methods for optimum multi-objective silviculture strategies. And the last objective is to deliver climate-resilient silvicultural prescriptions using the process-based individual tree models. This is a project that was paneled very well. It was reviewed very well in our panel. It is very innovative and it has great potential to lead to climate-smart forest management strategies. With that, I will say thank you again for attending our webinar today, and I will pass it on to our next speaker. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emmanuel Biamkama. I'm a National Program Leader in the Plant Protection Division. In this brief presentation, I'll provide a brief overview of the AFRI's Pests and Beneficial Program and an example of a grant working on a climate change effects on beneficial species. So the Pests and Beneficials in Agricultural Production Systems Program goal is to advance knowledge of invasive or established plant pests and associated beneficial species, leading to innovative and biologically based strategies to manage pests. And by pests, we mean invertebrate pests, plant pathogens, and all their vectors, nematodes, and weeds. And for the beneficial species, these are restricted to biological control agents and microbes. Other beneficial species, such as pollinators, are considered under other programs, such as pollinator health. One example of a funded project under the Pests and Beneficials program is titled Too Hot to Handle: How Will Changing Climate Affect Heritable Symbionts of a Generous Predator Guild? As we know, arthropods are important in agricultural systems, including being predators of insect pests, pollinators, and of course, pests of crops. Most of the arthropods host maternally inherited intercellular bacterial symbionts that provide their hosts with many benefits, including a nutrient acquisition, protection of their hosts from natural enemies, and other benefits. However, with the predicted increase in global temperatures, it is unclear how heritable symbionts and their arthropod hosts will interact under high temperatures. So this project is investigating the effects of high temperatures on heritable symbionts in spiders. And as we know, spiders have an important role as generous predators of pests. It is hoped that the results from this project will reveal how climate influences spider symbionts and will establish a new spider model system for studying heritable symbionts. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erica Kissner-Thomas. I'm a National Program Leader in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability in the Division of Plant Protection, and I manage AFRI's Pollinator Research and Application Program alongside Dr. Chris Phillips and Logan Appenfeller. The goal of this program is to fund research, extension, and education projects aimed at improving pollinator health. Pollinators can include a variety of organisms, including insects such as bees and butterflies, as well as animal pollinators such as bats. Applicants do need to address at least one or more of the following research priorities. Number one, research and factors influencing pollinator abundance, diversity, and health. And this includes climate, pesticides, pathogens, habitat, or forage. Number two, understanding pollinator microbiome function and its role in pollinator health. Number three, development of novel tools and innovative management practices that promote pollinator health. And number four, development of integrated pest and pollinator management practices. Now, priority number one is most in alignment with climate change research, but any of the other three priorities can also incorporate climate change, as well as bees in particular are very vulnerable to climate change, and it's already having a major impact. It has been well documented by the scientific community that climate change is having a major negative impact on both native and managed bee pollinators, and it can have a direct influence on bee behavior and physiology. It can alter the quality of their floral resources, reduce colony harvesting capacity and development. And bees in these environments are also exposed to pesticides, especially when they're in agroecosystem pollinating the crops that we need to have a safe and nutritious food supply. A project that was funded by the Pollinator Health Program looks at these synergistic effects of both pesticides and climate change on bees. It's entitled Climatic Warming and Fungicide Effects on Bees. This work is being conducted by Arizona State University in the honeybee pollinated almond groves of California. Almond groves are exclusively pollinated by bees. So without bees, we would have no almond crop. Unfortunately, the mortality rates of these bees that are trucked into these almond orchards is extremely high, in part because they are exposed to chemicals, including fungicides that growers need to apply to their almond trees for them to be healthy. The goal of this project is really to improve honeybee health under a changing climate, as well as under increasing effects of fungicide. The objectives here are to assess field exposure of honeybee colonies to fungicides while they're pollinating almonds, assess and model the effect of heat waves on colonial thermal regulation, development, and foraging, model the effect of fungicide dose on worker and colony health and fitness, and finally, measure the interactive effects of climatic warming and fungicide exposure together on the health and fitness of bee colonies. Deliverables here can include semi-field methods for assessing environmental stressors on honeybees, as well as new bee thermal imaging, biochemical assays, and respiration assays as well. Overall, the PDs in this project would like this data generated here to be used to help design a better beehive. As you can see in the photo, these beehives that are used for pollination are often really small, they're very tight, and they easily heat up. So there really needs to be a better way for us to pollinate our commercial almond orchards without stressing out our bees under an increasingly warm climate. And with that, I will conclude my talk. If you have any questions, please refer to the AFRI RFA to find our the National Program Leader's contact information. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name is Christian Tobias. I'm a National Program Leader in the Division of Plant Production within NIFA. And together with National Program Leader Jessica Shade and Program Specialist Daniel McCoy, we run two AFRI priorities related to climate change: plant breeding for agricultural production and plant breeding for cultivar development. So I'm going to tell you about these priorities now and some of the ways they address climate change. So plant breeding for agricultural production supports breeding efforts to improve crop productivity, efficiency, quality, and performance, including things such as climate resiliency or a resistance to abiotic stresses such as heat and drought. In general, we support projects that address the breeding priorities in the USDA plant breeding roadmap, which is available at the USDA website. So traits that would be appropriate targets for crops that are funded through this program include increased nutrient use efficiency, radiation use efficiency, canopy architecture or spike architecture, tolerance of drought, flood, and other temperature extremes, resistance to biotic stresses like pests and diseases, improved taste, aroma, and nutritional quality, or adaptation and appropriateness for different production systems, such as vertical agriculture or high tunnel production. We also fund research that utilizes the resources in our national plant germplasm system. For instance, bringing in new traits from crop wild relatives to enhance the elite cultivars that are used in production. We support research that improves breeding efficiency on selection theory and applied quantitative genetics. We support a lot of work on phenomics, such as the acquisition of crop growth indices using UAVs or other remote sensing platforms to contribute to high throughput phenotyping approaches. And we support crop growth modeling research, including the use of digital twins and the use of artificial intelligence to predict crop performance, combining these genetic and phenotypic and environmental data sets. Just to give you an example of some of the research that is funded, this is an example of how wheat wild relatives have been used to identify targets for breadwheat improvement. And it's in part was the result of funding to Vijay Tiwari at the University of Maryland through this program. And this project focused on a crop wild relative called Agilops tauschii, which contributes one of the subgenomes of the hexaploid breadwheat. And this project was able to sequence about 240 different accessions of Agilops tauschii and compare them to the wheat D subgenome and characterize these accessions' genomic diversity. And it was found that a rare lineage of tauschii that was geographically restricted to what's present-day Georgia now contributed to the modern wheat D genome. That is what gave rise to modern breadwheat, but there's a lot more diversity within the D genome that can be exploited. And so this study identified sources of traits including stem rust resistance, flowering time, spikelet number, and powdery mildew resistance, and wheat curl mite resistance, and identified candidate genes for all of these traits that can then be incorporated through the production of synthetic new hexaploid wheat varieties from these diverse tauschii accessions that then can have the relevant genomic regions introgressed into elite new wheat varieties that can address issues such as root architecture or spike architecture and flowering time that might have importance for climate change and climate adaptation. So the other AFRI priority is plant breeding for cultivar development. And this supports breeding efforts. It's been going on since about 2022 to provide farmers with greater access to locally and regionally adapted finished cultivars. And again, this addresses some of the priorities in the plant breeding roadmap. And research that's supported by this program must fund latter stages of cultivar, focused on testing and evaluation of materials that are about ready for release in multiple environments, with the primary goal then of releasing a finished cultivar within the period of the award. And so some of the areas that might be appropriate for this priority include things like participatory breeding for variety selection, projects that incorporate the training of field-based plant breeders is encouraged. The use of crops that are appropriate for tribal food systems is appropriate, and development of new cultivars that address the sustainability and climate resiliency issues is really appropriate as well. I'll give you another example of research funded through this priority, and that's a award that was given to a small fruit breeder at Auburn University, Su-Xin Liu. And she is developing new blueberry cultivars of the Southern Highbush variety for the Southeast that are appropriate for other growing areas in the Southeast outside of the main production areas. So the main production areas include Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina. And what's limiting blueberry production in some other states like Alabama or Tennessee is the lack of frost tolerance. Oftentimes, there are late spring frost events that affect flowering in blueberry, and that decreases yields and makes blueberry production in those states difficult. So as you can see in the graph here on the lower right, production of blueberries has increased over the past 10 years, and most of that early production is in the Southeast, shown in red on the plot on the right-hand side. So this program is developing new varieties then with better chilling tolerance and good flavor and yield qualities to sustain production in these underserved regions for small growers in the Southeast like Alabama. So we're really excited about some of these projects. If you'd like to know more about some of the projects and how this program is run, don't hesitate to reach out and contact myself or Jessica or Dan. Thanks a lot.
Hello, my name is John Erickson. I'm a national program leader in the Plant Systems Production Division in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability here at USDA NIFA. I lead the plant physiology and plant biotechnology programs. And here I'll talk about the AFRI Foundational and Applied Science Physiology of Agricultural Plants program. The program code is A1152. This program supports projects to improve the productivity or other performance factors of agriculturally important plants using molecular, biochemical, whole plant, agronomic, or ecophysiological approaches. The genetic basis of important traits identified through these studies are expected to translate into plant varieties with improved yield or product quality or growth resilience to adverse environmental conditions, including those associated with climate change. Some of the specific sub-priorities of this program are projects that focus on physiological mechanisms underlying plant growth and developmental responses, plant responses to abiotic stresses, including climate factors like temperature, drought, atmospheric carbon dioxide, and plant nutrient uptake, assimilation, and/or utilization. So this program covers the breadth of plant physiology from molecular and cell biology to environmental interactions. Here we have a project that was funded by the A1152 program entitled Dissecting the Physiological Mechanisms of Plant Nutrient Responses to Rising Atmospheric Carbon Dioxide Levels. Increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations have been shown to decrease seed mineral composition for many elements and for many crops, raising concerns about the nutritional quality of many crops under predicted future climate scenarios. Here, researchers from Virginia Tech University, Donald Danforth Center, and Auburn University are helping us to better understand this problem in the project highlighted here. They have identified numerous soybean cultivars that vary in phenotypes that will allow the researchers to test hypotheses related to elemental accumulation in soybean kernels under current and predicted atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. There are a number of factors that made this climate-related project a good fit for the A1152 program. It not only involved an abiotic climate stress factor, elevated atmospheric carbon dioxide, but also addressed another priority area related to nutrient uptake and accumulation in crop plants. The work was hypothesis and mechanistic driven to improve our fundamental understanding of plant physiology. The work was conducted in soybean, an agriculturally relevant crop, and the work also has the potential to impact agriculture in the development and or use of crop germplasm that can mitigate the decline in nutritional value of seeds under elevated atmospheric carbon dioxide associated with even current, but especially future climate scenarios. If you have any questions about the Physiology of Agricultural Plants program, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the program staff. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angelica Van Goren. I'm a national program leader at NIFA, and I work in the Division of Animal Systems. One of two programs that I manage funds climate change related research. The first one is AFRI 1201, which is Animal Breeding Genetics and Genomics, and I co-manage this program with Dr. Tim Sullivan. So this program priority area focuses on novel quantitative genetic methods to improve selection theory and modeling in food animal species, implementing these selection methods, etc. Development of national and regional breeding strategies to address biotic and abiotic stresses, genetic diversity, germplasm storage and characterization, or genome modifications, and also development of new phenotypes for improving selection criteria. We also fund projects that focus on exploring alternatives to control inbreeding and exploit crossbreeding, and conduct classical selection experiments. So the project that I would like to highlight from this program is a really nice project from Raluca Matuska at the University of Florida. And the title of this is Integration of Functional Genomics in Genomics-Assisted Beef Cattle Breeding for Improved Thermotolerance. So with climate change and higher temperatures, our animals tend to not do as well, but there are genetic differences between them. So this particular project focuses on beef cattle, measuring the genetic aspect of response to higher temperatures, such as in body temperature, sweat gland, associations between resiliency to hotter temperatures and the morphology of those glands, and also things like hair coat and coat score, so the hair length and diameter, where shorter and slicker haired beef cattle tend to have higher heat thermotolerance. And this QR code here in the bottom right will bring you to this particular project if you like more information. A second program that I manage is AFRI 1261. This is Interdisciplinary Engagement in Animal Systems, and I co-manage this program with Dr. Giomi Zamora. And so this program area seeks to bridge traditional disciplinary divides to address complex issues in animal agriculture, which requires new interdisciplinary work anchored in animal and veterinary medical sciences. So the three main priority areas are precision animal management, environmental synergies of animal production, and societal aspects of animal welfare. And the project that I would like to highlight that focuses on climate change here is a nice project by Dr. Guillermo Rosa from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and this project's title is Integrating Enviromics, Genomics, and Machine Learning for Precision Breeding of Resilient Beef Cattle. So you can see that this project is integrating various environmental measures to try to select the best animals for the best regional area of the United States, so we can have a more resilient population of animals in the face of climate change. That's not just hotter temperature, but also changes in the environment. And with that, thank you for your time.
Hello, I am Dr. Camila Grant, National Program Leader in the Division of Animal Systems in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. And today I'm going to present to you two programs that I co-lead with Dr. Mark Mirando and how they relate to climate change by representation of one of our projects that we have funded. And the first thing I'm going to do is talk to you about the funding priorities of animal reproduction, which may not be what you first think of when you think about climate change. And the funding priorities of that program are cellular, molecular, genomic or genetic, or whole animal aspects of animal reproduction to improve reproductive efficiency or enhance reproductive management, especially focusing on gonadal function, including production, function, and preservation of gametes, hypothalamic pituitary axis, embryonic and fetal development, including interaction between the conceptus and its uterine environment, as well as the microbiome of the reproductive tract. And so one of the projects that I want to highlight here is that of Dr. Colleen Suckling. And the title of her project is Examining Temporal Shifts in Green Sea Urchin Reproduction, which can impact production. And the overall objective of this particular project is to determine whether the global warming is shifting the timing of the green sea urchin reproductive cycle, which would be a response by anecdotal evidence from the industry. And so what this project focuses on is the overall heating influences on animal reproduction. The second project that I'm going to highlight is going to come from the Welfare of Agricultural Animals program, or AFRI's A1251 program. And the funding priorities of that particular program include evaluation of current production practices or development of new management approaches to safeguard animal welfare and adaptation to climate change, including objective measures of animal welfare, including use of emerging methods and metrics for assessment for outcome-based welfare, alternatives or improvements for pain management, euthanasia, and slaughter, handling and transportation to decrease injury and distress, which would include thermal stress, understanding the effect of the microbiome on animal welfare, selection for robustness, behavior, and/or social effects, including those that may be impacted by climate change, such as thermal stress, or innovative alternatives to replace or reduce the use of animals in research. And the project that I'm going to highlight here is that of Dr. Hengwei Chen. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this is because it focused on the cold stress aspects where there's extreme cold temperatures as it relates to climate change. And so the objective here is to identify intervention methods to reduce thermal stress in egg-laying strains of chickens. And while animal welfare and animal reproduction may not be your first forethoughts when it comes to climate change, please do think of them as you think of climate change in the future. Thank you.
Hello, I am Dr. Jody Williams, a National Program Leader in Food Safety at USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture in the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition. I'm happy to share with you a program that funds climate-related work to be highlighted in the Usual Suspects webinar. AFRI's Food Safety and Defense Program, program code 81332, is a research-only program that I provide leadership to. Projects are up to $650,000 for a 3 to 5 year project duration period. The overall purpose of the program is to competitively fund basic and applied research that will reduce the risk of intentional or unintentional contamination of foods. That includes physical, chemical, and/or microbiological contamination. I would like to highlight a project from the University of Idaho entitled Developing a Novel Liquid Phase Plasma Discharge Technology for Non-Thermal and Continuous Milk Processing. The project director is Dr. Zhao Wu, and the project was funded in fiscal year 2022. The purpose of the project is to use advanced green technology, the continuous flow liquid phase plasma discharge reactor, to efficiently process raw milk while maintaining the safety and quality of traditionally pasteurized milk. The traditional thermal pasteurization process is not energy efficient and leads to consumer quality and nutrition concerns. This new non-thermal low-energy green alternative, CLPD, will be compact, easy to operate, and efficiently produce a safe product with well-preserved quality and nutrition characteristics. The early optimization models of the technology demonstrate a 6-log reduction of E. coli at 7.6 joules per milliliter. These are some of the lowest energy consumption levels found in literature. The next steps are to test the model using raw milk and compare it to traditionally pasteurized milk.
Hello, my name is Dr. Chris Grimes. I'm a national program leader in the Division of Nutrition in the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition. I oversee 2 AFRI-related programs. One is A1344, Diet, Nutrition, and the Prevention of Chronic Diseases. And the second is A1343, Nutrition and Human Health. Diet, nutrition, and prevention of chronic diseases intersects with climate research. The maximum budget request for this program area is $1 million unless you are working with specific partners, which could add an additional $150,000 to make a grand total of $1,150,000 for funding. The typical length or period that a project runs within this program area is between 3 and 5 years. Now, there is one project type in this program area, and those are integrated projects, which means that they would tie in teaching, extension, and research, or at least 2 of those functions. So this program only accepts integrated projects. There are a variety of grant types. There are standard grants, seed grants, conference grants, and FACE grants, such as new investigator, sabbatical, etc. If you are interested in this program area, you can feel free to contact myself, Chris Grimes, at christopher.grimes@usda.gov, or Dr. Mallory Keenings, mallory.keenings@usda.gov. As an example of one project that ties nutrition to climate change, I want to demonstrate that by showing you Dr. Sarah Elnikib's project from Rutgers University. Her project, People, Plants, and the Planet, a multi-method study to develop and implement and evaluate a food and climate change intervention to empower adolescents to make healthy and sustainable plant-based food choices, is a project that demonstrates how food and health can intersect with climate research. This project has 2 primary goals. The first goal is to examine the influence of adolescents' climate change knowledge and beliefs on their food choices. And the goal of this first part is to inform the development of an educational intervention to increase plant-based food consumption, such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and subsequently reduce the prevalence of chronic disease among adolescents. The second goal is to develop, implement, and pilot test an innovative planetary health curriculum to increase plant-based foods, i.e. fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, that supports the prevention of chronic disease among adolescents.
Greetings. My name is Dr. Junior Jean Giles Bobron, and I'm a national program leader from the USDA NIFA Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition and the Division of Food Safety. The program that I'm in charge of is mitigating antimicrobial resistance across the food chain, and our program code is A1366. Our program projects support research projects that are both integrated with research, education, and extension, covering about $1 million per proposed project for up to 5 years. And we also cover grant types such as standard, conference, and phase grants. And as part of the mitigating antimicrobial resistance across the food chain, we do realize that antimicrobial resistance and climate change are some of the top problems when it comes to health currently. And one of the projects in the A1366 that reflects some of the work related to climate change is from the University of Ohio, and it's titled Environmental, Human, and Animal Health Risks from the Dissemination of Carbamazepine Resistance Interbacteriaceae, labeled as GRE, into agricultural watersheds. And this project was to evaluate how the environmental impact of CRE from healthcare waste into the water waste treatment plants get discharged into surface water, and then they become incorporated into downstream level agriculture farm and impact the ecosystem in the broader watersheds. And so far, they have seen that there are 6% of the sample that they've collected that have this samples that are showing actual CRE present in the isolates. But the long-term goal of this project is to protect animal agriculture in inland fisheries by preventing the transport and understanding of CRE from human healthcare that get disseminated into the watershed that gets into the environment. So as part of the USDA initiative, this project will also allow us to help mitigate antimicrobial resistance and as it impacts climate change.
We will now transition to the question and answer portion of today's webinar. Panelists, please turn your cameras on. We received a few questions that came in prior to today's webinar. First question, panelists. Is it possible to apply for funding from a country other than America?
I can answer to that. So for AFRI, the lead PD does need to be in the United States. So they need to be in an institution of an eligible institution. So, of a state agricultural agency, a university, or a federal agency in the United States to apply as a lead PD. However, we do want to have international collaborations, and we do recommend that if you are interested, you can contact any colleagues that you have in the United States if you wanted to do a cross collaboration. The caveat here is that any project that you do with a collaborator in the United States with them as lead PD, it does have to have implications for U.S. agriculture.
Thank you, Erica. Next question. Are alumni associations allowed to apply for education funding?
I'll take this. I think it really is dependent on the program area that you're applying to and whether an alumni association has completed the SAM.gov and other necessary registrations to receive federal funding. Whether you're applying to an AFRI area that's single function, then you might be eligible, but there are other programs that we fund that are education focused that perhaps an alumni association would not be eligible. So if you have a question about eligibility, it's always best to reach out to the contact information of a specific program.
Thank you, Rachel. How are frontline communities being incorporated either directly or as recipients?
I can answer to that. It depends on the project in mind. If, for example, you are wanting to work on tribal lands with preserving, helping adaptation to climate change on tribal lands, then 100%. You shouldn't just have stakeholder letters of support from the particular tribes. They should be co-PDs on that project. So we would encourage applicants, if you are working with local communities, that they not just have little support from them, but they are active participants in these types of projects.
I'll add that on the plant production side, we have a commodity board co-funded program that's responsive to industry needs and is more directed at the specific immediate short-term needs of producers.
Thank you. I see a few questions in the Q&A box. The first question, and this is regarding A1102. For which crops and geographies is the most of the research on resilience to weather extremes being conducted?
So I think this is a question where we would have to go back and look at all our data. The resilience to weather extremes is something that goes across a lot of programs in NIFA. So it's hard at this point to come up with one specific crop that you're asking for.
Thank you.
As we answer this question, I was just thinking we might just do a quick round robin of the panelists so people know who is responding to their questions. I introduced myself at the beginning, so I'll pass, but just for the others, Courtney, yourself, and if the others wouldn't mind just letting folks know who they are, which division, that would be great.
Sure, Rubella. I am Courtney Simmons, a National Program Leader in the Institute of Youth, Family, and Community in the Division of Family and Consumer Sciences.
Greetings, everyone. Adam Wilkie, National Program Leader in the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate, and the Environment, Division of Global Climate Change.
Thank you. Erica?
Erica Kissner-Thomas, National Program Leader in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability, Division Plant Protection.
Thank you. Christian?
Yeah, Christian Tobias, National Program Leader in the Division of Plant Production.
Jody?
Jody Williams, I'm a National Program Leader in Food Safety in the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition in the Division of Food Safety.
Thank you. Rachel?
I'm Rachel Melnick. I am the Division Director for the Division of Global Climate Change and currently acting co-lead for the Climate Priority Team at NIFA.
Thank you. Erin?
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a program specialist for the Plant Protection Division.
Thank you. All right. Please go ahead, Courtney. Sorry to jump in.
Thank you. We have a question from Cynthia Rice. Is there a special consideration for HBCUs or other land-grant universities based on limited funding? Additional staff may be needed to be hired to fulfill grant proposal needs.
We have what's known as phase eligible institutions or strengthening eligible institutions, and this is specific to AFRI. This is mandated by Congress that we spend at least 15% of all of AFRI's budget on phase eligible institutions, which of course include minority serving institutions such as historically Black colleges, 1890s, tribal colleges, and any other minority serving institution that has over 50% minorities that is not within the top 100% funded universities. So they have to be at a university that is not ranked in the top 100 for the amount of federal grant money that they get. So a university like UC Davis would not be eligible for this money, but Tuskegee University, for example, would certainly be eligible for these phase funds. And so what the phase funds do is it allows us to spend at least 15% of our budget on these phase eligible institutions. And we do this program every year. It's federally mandated. So that you do have that advantage of being eligible for that money put aside just for phase institutions. And then we also highly encourage people to partner with minority serving 1890 institutions as co-PDs as well. So highly encourage any minority servings or historically Black colleges to apply. You do have that phase eligible funding just for you.
Thank you, Erica. And I see one last question. I wonder, will the program reply some feedback for the proposal, even if not selected for funding?
Generally, yes, we do. All proposals have to undergo reviews, and those reviews are sent back to the project director, as well as, in many cases, a panel summary. And we instruct our panelists to provide detailed information on what the strengths and weaknesses of those proposals are and how they can be improved.
Sure, and to add to what Christian said, as in addition to those reviews, if you have any questions, you are always welcome to reach out to the National Program Leader with questions, set up a time to speak with them, and they are always happy to explain things further to you.
How can we participate on a review panel?
There's a couple different ways to participate. You can reach out directly to the National Program Leader who's leading the panel of interest, and then they will ask you to complete a questionnaire, a volunteer questionnaire in the peer review system through a link. And that will provide information not only to the program you're interested in applying to, in serving as a panelist, but also to other national program leaders who may be interested in your subject matter expertise. They may reach out to you as well.
Thank you,
Just
Jess.
add on to that, contact the national program leader of the program specifically that you want to participate in, because that's how I get a lot of panelists. If they contact me directly, then I'm like, great, I have a volunteer. I have somebody I can count on that wants to be on the panel. So yeah, contact us directly. We're very happy to hear from you because we do have trouble getting panelists.
And there is the link that Jody said, it's also available online. So I'll try to paste it here if I can. And that link you can directly volunteer if you can't contact anybody else on the program. And we can pull those names out as we are looking for different specializations. The link is in the chat already. Thank you.
Thank you, Rubella. And when will the recording of this webinar become public?
I'll take that. So we will need to make sure that it is compliant. So we will have a transcription services to make sure that that is synced up, but in probably a few days, maybe at most 2 weeks, you will have that posted at the exact same site where the events for the webinar are hosted. So we will have it posted as soon as we can make sure that it is compliant to our webpage.
Thank you, Rachel. And Rubella, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Courtney. We have a few more minutes if anyone has any last questions. Well, it looks like we have addressed all of them that are there on the chat, and I don't see anyone typing right now. John has shared the link of where the recording will be posted. So feel free to go in and listen to the recordings and reach out to any of us if you have any questions. With that, I would like to thank you all very much for joining this webinar and look forward to seeing your applications come into our programs. Thank you.